Welcome, everybody, to the Cover 2 podcast. I am Nick Nenad.
And I'm Jared Smith.
And Merry Christmas to everybody. It's Christmas week. We're recording here on Monday before the Monday Night Football game. We have plenty of football to talk about, but we wanted to wish a Merry Christmas to everybody out there a few days away. It's going to be the weirdest Christmas ever because obviously we're still dealing with COVID-19, but we have plenty of NBA finally to watch, and we also have a special NFL game to watch, which we will talk about on this podcast, amongst other NFL topics. On this podcast, though, of course, we're going to be talking about the NFL. We always do. But we're also going to be getting into the college football playoff because Jared and I do not agree with the four teams. Both of us don't agree with specific things about the college football playoff, so we will get into that. And if there's anything I love to talk about, it's college football because there's so much corruption and there's so much that can happen every single week. And funny enough, even before we were talking about the podcast or before we were talking about recording today, the college football playoff is like half from now or something like that. Like it's coming up pretty soon. So normally we do a podcast, Jared, and we would have a few weeks before we had to talk about college football. We'll probably be talking about college football next week. We'll be predicting those finals games, those semifinal games next week. So, but before we get into all the football talk, we want to do our special topics to start the podcast. We're going to just discuss something that we personally want to talk about to get it started, and something that we usually don't talk about in the podcast here. So I will start with the number one team in college basketball, the Gonzaga Zags. I don't even know if that's their mascot name. It doesn't matter. Gonzaga is the clear best team in college basketball. Why do I say that? Because they beat the hell out of number 3 Iowa, a team that a lot of people picked to beat Gonzaga and be one of the top teams in the nation. They still are ranked number 4, but Gonzaga at one point was up by 20 points in this game. Freshman Jalen Suggs hit 7 3-pointers on his way to a 30-point game. Yes, that's 30 points in a college basketball game. That's a pretty big deal. And Gonzaga, as far as their record goes, they're only 4-0. But here's who they've beat. Number 3, Kansas. Number 4, Iowa. Number 7, West Virginia. And 5-2, Auburn. So this team, I don't see losing to a lot of teams. And they got to be your title favorite if you like college basketball. This is the top team right now. The one other team that could challenge them, and they were supposed to play a game earlier this season, was Baylor. We'll have to see about that. Baylor has been dealing with their own COVID issues, so they haven't played as many games. So number 1 and number 2, pretty clear right now, are Baylor and Gonzaga.
Yeah, my opening thought for today's podcast is James Harden. And first of all, for those of you that have not seen James Harden recently, and I mean as of like last week, why don't you go on Google and type in James Harden and then go to images. The dude looks like he's been packing on, he's been, the Dunkin' Donuts have been hitting him pretty hard, right? He doesn't look like he's in basketball shape at all, right? He was in Atlanta in the offseason, going to, other famous people's birthday parties. He was in Vegas partying out there. And it's almost like he basically said, I don't want to play for the Houston Rockets, so I'm not even going to get myself in shape until you trade me. This is such an interesting and fascinating story with James Harden, because if he wants to be traded, he's going to have to work with Houston in some fashion, in some way, right? I think he messed up originally by saying, I only want to go to a specific team. And when you say that, right, you're handcuffing the organization, and that would be the Houston Rockets, because now Houston can really only negotiate with that one team. Because if you're another organization, if you're, let's say, the Miami Heat, who would like to have James Harden, I mean, listen, Miami's not going to give up much, knowing that James Harden said that he only wants to go to the 76ers, if that is indeed true. So James Harden kind of messed up by opening his mouth and basically giving away what he wants to do. That's not really a good negotiating tactic. Miami actually came out today and say that they're ending their pursuit of James Harden. More than likely because James Harden said,
because he's fat.
I don't really want to go there, right? there's just so many twists and turns to go along with this. So we got the basketball season starting tomorrow, right? As of right now, James Harden is still a Houston Rocket. There's no way that this match lasts much longer, right? I mean, he's going to get traded eventually. It's just a matter of when, and I can't wait soon enough. I'm tired of hearing about it. James Harden doesn't want to be there. It doesn't seem like the Houston Rockets want him there, but he can't. The Houston Rockets are waiting to get the best offer. Like they're waiting for everything, multiple first-round picks for the next couple of years, potentially Ben Simmons if it is the Sixers that trade him. And the Sixers are basically saying, we'll give you draft picks, we won't give you Ben Simmons. So there's a stalemate. Who's going to give up first? James Harden? Is he going to say, okay, I'll suck it up and play for Houston? Or is Houston going to cave in and finally say, all right, well, we will take less than what we really want from James Harden? One way or the other, this saga will end. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, Jared. I mean, that picture of James Harden is hilarious. The guy looks like he's 260 pounds. It looks like he should be playing the defensive line for the Houston Texans, and they could actually probably use some help in that category because they only have 4 wins on the season. Speaking of football, we have a big NFL segment for you guys today. We are going to start with the best of the worst. We'll get into that in a second, just to get that out of the way, because we had an insane game that nobody thought would be an insane game happen. But after that, we're going to get kind of straight into Week 16 because it's the biggest week in NFL this season. There's so much that can happen. There's so much clinching that can happen. There's so many different scenarios that can help teams' playoff spots, hurt teams' playoff spots, eliminate teams. So we'll get into that. We're going to get into, I believe, 4 or 5 NFL divisions, at least the ones that have not been dominated or have not been won. I believe we will not get into the AFC West, the AFC East, or the NFC North at the top of my head, because you have the Packers, Chiefs, and Bills have already clinched those divisions. Every other division we will get into, and we will go over all of the scenarios for the NFC East, because we know you guys all want to hear about that. So we'll do that, and then, of course, we will get into the college football playoff a little bit later. But, Jared, let's talk about them Jets, right? Because they beat the Los Angeles Rams 23-20. Sam Darnold, on his way out of New York, hurting the Jets Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. You gotta love it. It's so Jets. Meanwhile, the Jaguars got murdered by the Ravens. They had no punter for the game. This is the best of the worst. But Jared, I was watching the Cardinals-Eagles game because Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray were going off, and I was slowly following this Rams-Jets game. I'm sure you didn't watch the Rams-Jets game either, but if you did, or at least if you want to make a comment, please discuss and explain to me how the hell this happened.
I have no words. I don't understand the Jets. I really don't. I don't understand. I don't know, like, who is worse in this situation. Like, who is to blame? Is it the Jets for actually winning, or is it the Rams for losing to a winless team? Like, the Rams, after coming off of the last couple of weeks, they've gotten better and better. I mean, the Rams were, like, potentially going to be one of the top teams coming out of the NFC. The entire NFC conference, not just the NFC West, right? They were playing well. Jared Goff was playing well. That defense was nasty. Obviously, you've got Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, both at their respective positions, arguably the best players at their positions. So, I mean, and the Rams were at home. Like, I don't have any. It's like, you're right. The Jets win, and if you're a player or if you're a staff member of the Jets, you're probably happy. You're not going to go down in history as a winless team. Congratulations. But you potentially just screwed yourself from getting one of the most decorated and best college quarterbacks to come out of college, and probably since Andrew Luck, right? There's a lot of scouts that have said we haven't seen a player this great since Andrew Luck, and I mean Trevor Lawrence of the Clemson Tigers. So, like, if you're the Jets, you just, I don't know, man, like, put all of your young guys in, like, play well for 3 quarters, and in the 4th quarter, like, just run the ball. I don't know. Like, don't win. You screwed yourselves. It's so unbelievable that with a win, the Jets actually might have lost. Like they won the battle, but more than likely they're going to lose the war because the Jaguars, as long as they continue to look pathetic, like they more than likely will, have an opportunity to now get Trevor Lawrence. I mean, if you're Trevor Lawrence, like in all seriousness right now, like you've got to be sitting back on Sundays, right, and watching these games and saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to the winless Jets. And then you got to be sitting on the couch yesterday being like, oh my gosh, the Jets just won. I may now be going to Florida and not New York. Like, which situation do you feel would be better for Trevor Lawrence? Like, is there a better situation? Are both of these organizations, the Jets and the Jaguars, are garbage, hot garbage. I really do not know which one I would prefer to be. Do you want to be in the Sunshine State, right? No state income tax in Florida, save some money, you know? Or do you want to be in New York, the Big Apple, the big city? A lot of opportunities outside of football, you know? But as far as these teams go, if I'm Trevor Lawrence, I'm pulling an Eli Manning, and I'm saying I am not going to either of those teams. Ooh. If it's the Jets or the Jaguars, you are both going to make a trade and send me to any of the other 29 teams in the league. I'm not playing for any of those teams. And that's how I look at it. Like, it was so unreal. I don't even want to get into the Rams. I can guarantee you that like Sean McVay, that post-game news press conference, you could just tell in his voice that he was not happy. Like, if I was him, no, I wouldn't let any of the players go home. Like, you guys are staying at the facilities all week. You guys are sleeping in the lockers, and it's just practice all week. Like, they don't. The Rams might not even deserve to make the playoffs, if I'm being completely honest. You cannot lose to a winless team at home.
Yeah,
at home.
Jared, this is so bad. First of all, for Trevor Lawrence, okay, yeah, we know that he's going to. Well, there's the chance that Cincinnati loses out and the Jets and Jags win their last two games, and Cincinnati is there, but they had Joe Burrow, so it doesn't matter. So he's going to go to the Jaguars, Jets, right? Now, Jared, there's something interesting that a lot of people don't know. They go, Trevor Lawrence is going to be the number one pick. Trevor Lawrence is also a junior. Trevor Lawrence can just go back to Clemson. Be like, all right, whatever. I'll try next year. Like, then I have to come out, but like, maybe you just don't draft and then you just don't play college football next season and you go, I want to go to somebody else. Like, I don't think Trevor Lawrence is the type of guy to say, I'm not going to play for a team like Eli Manning or John Elway. I think he's too nice of a guy. But maybe he just manipulates the system and takes advantage of the fact that he's only a junior. He's only played 3 years in college football. Now, hopefully nothing happens to him in either the college football semifinal or the college football championship game if they're able to make it, because we obviously don't want one of the stud guys to get hurt. But for Trevor Lawrence, just reminding everybody and reminding him, if he's listening, you're only a junior. You can go back to college, and you do not have to go to the NFL next year if you really don't want to play for one of those teams. Speaking of these teams, though, Jared, you explained it perfectly. The Jets lost, realistically, because I'll say this. The Jags, they play the Browns, and they play the Colts. So they're losing the last two games of this season. They're going to be 1-15. The Jets, it doesn't matter because the Jags already have that tiebreaker over them for the last place team. And so now the Jets, I think the Jets play like the Patriots and who is it? What was I just? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This hurt the Jets a lot, right? The one thing it did help, I guess, is Sam Darnold's trade value and at least maybe his stake to be a starting quarterback next year. But man, did this suck. I want to talk about the Rams, though, because the Rams are in the NFC West, Jared, as you know. And that's the team, that's the division the Cardinals are in. And what's so crazy about this is the Rams were going to go into that Seahawks-Rams game in Week 16 that we'll talk about. Being in clear first place, having the same record as the Seahawks, and with a win in that game, they win the division and they can take Week 17 off. Now, they can't do that no matter what. They have to play the Cardinals. The Cardinals are going to be, no matter what, fighting for a playoff spot more than likely in that game. And now they have to try Week 17 because they didn't try in Week 15 and they lost to the Jets. This Rams team, I think when you see stuff like this, it doesn't matter how good they look. They're just too inconsistent. And a game like this, as obvious as it may seem, this proves to me they are in a Super Bowl contender. And yeah, they might still win the NFC West because the Seahawks defense is garbage and they might end up winning that division. And they play really well against the Cardinals every year, so they'll likely end up at least 10-6. But man, are they not going to win a Super Bowl this year with stuff like this? They just seem, when they are not completely locked in, they're not locked in at all. And they lose to easy teams. They lose winnable games. And then they can win the big games. But man, does this prove the Rams are not a title contender as of right now? Anything else you want to say about this Jets-Jags-Rams situation? Or do you want to move on to Week 16?
No, we can move on. Last thing about the Rams. Listen, you have, everyone's human, right? You're going to have a letdown. I'm sure a lot of these players are like, oh, we're playing the Jets. It's 5:00. I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna see the wife. I'm gonna play some Call of Duty. I don't need to study. I don't need to study for an extra 3 hours this week. It's the Jets. We're going to win. We got this in the bag. No big deal. Done. Right. And I think they kind of let their foot off the gas a little bit. And you're exactly right, Nick. The Rams could still, very much win the NFC West. But great teams don't lose to winless teams. Right. You can have a letdown. Every given Sunday, that's why you show up and play, but not like this, not at home, and not to this Jets team. This Jets team is one of the worst of all time, not just this year, all time. And for the Rams to lose this game, they're just no more words. So yes, let's move on. But if you're the Rams, oh my gosh, thankfully none of us are Rams fans. I wouldn't be able to come on the show today. I really wouldn't. I'd have to have that face. I wouldn't be able to show my face. It'd be that bad.
And what, especially Jared, think about this. I'm not going to extend on this, but the Seahawks obliterated them the week before. It's not like the Jets were playing everybody tough. It's one of those things where they just don't know how to win. They sucked the week before. They got killed. It really proved NFL is NFL. That's all I'm going to say. Any team can beat any team. In college, that would have never happened yesterday. Georgia is not losing to Georgia Tech State. It's just not happening. So it's crazy. It's crazy. All right, moving on to important things. Why don't we just start with this, because this will just get this out of the way really quickly. NFC West. We're going to go through all the divisions that matter. NFC West. So, Jared, after talking about this Rams team, we'll just extend on them a little bit more. You have Rams and Seahawks play each other in Week 16. The Seahawks come in with a 10-4 record. The Rams come in now with a 9-5 record. Now, if you guys remember, the Rams already beat the Seahawks. So, if the Rams do win, they have the tiebreaker over the Seahawks, having beaten them twice, and all they have to do is just beat Arizona in Week 17, which is very possible. And they win the division. Seahawks, with this game, they win the division. So, Jared, what do you think? You think that this loss for the Rams will affect them, and that they'll go into this game demoralized? Or do you think they'll do what they have been doing to the Seahawks last few years, and they'll be able to take advantage of that defense, and they'll beat the Seahawks?
No, I think this is going to mess with the Rams' minds a little bit. I guarantee they will be more focused in practice this week. They will do some extra studying in the film room. They're not going to take anything for granted. They're going up against Russell Wilson, right? And we all know what Russell Wilson can do by himself. You also got DK Metcalf on the other side. I will say, when these two teams played earlier in the year, Jalen Ramsey shut down DK Metcalf. I believe DK Metcalf only had 2 catches. He was non-existent in that game, and we all know how great of a player DK Metcalf is. So I think on the flip side, you're going to see some of these Seahawks players that are going to have a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to want to say, we played poorly in that first game against the Rams, so we want to come out and show that that's not how we play. And so, I don't like this game for the Rams. Coming off of that bad of a loss and now having to travel to a division rival opponent, and the Seahawks are not going to overlook this at all. I'm going to take the Seahawks in this game, man. I think the Seahawks take a 2-game lead in this division and in a sense lock up this division. I'm giving this to the Seahawks. I don't see the Rams doing it, man. How can you have trust in a team that just lost to the Jets? How can you pick it?
That's true. Well, you also have in this game coming in, the Seahawks have been playing a lot better than they were too. They've been obviously they crapped on the Jets. They beat the Cardinals a little ways back, and they played a tough Washington defense and played well yesterday. So they're coming in with momentum already. The Rams are at the lowest of the low you possibly could. So I'm going to take the Seahawks here. I think it might be a close game, but the Seahawks, Russell Wilson, they'll figure out a way to win. They know what they have to do, and they've been the best team in the NFC West for most of the year besides like a quick 2 or 3 weeks, the Rams everybody thought was God, and then all of a sudden they lose to the Jets. So they proved who they are. Now, real quick, Jared, you have the Cardinals also in this division fighting for a playoff spot. Unbiasedly, I believe you have the Cardinals. Again, I might have explained this earlier. Or no, I didn't. I explained this off the podcast. The Cardinals situation right now is they're one game ahead of everybody for the 7th spot. The problem is, though, and that's why it's going to be so interesting what happens in the Seattle Rams game, how the season will end, because they do not have the tiebreaker over the Bears. So if the Bears and Cardinals end up with the same record, the Bears will get in, which will likely be 9-7. I expect the Cardinals to beat the 49ers, who likely won't bring Jimmy G and Kittle back now. They are eliminated from the playoffs. The Cardinals get a break there. They'll likely be 9-6 going into a final game against the Rams. The thing is, what Rams team will be? Will it be the Rams team fighting for the division, or will it be a Rams team that knows they're the 5th seed? So the Cardinals, again, could get a break there. The Bears, very hot team with old Mitchell Trubisky somehow at the helm. They come in, the Bears play the Jags week 16, and then they play the Packers, who potentially could not care. So what are your thoughts after hearing all that, Jared? What do you think the odds are the Cardinals make the playoffs? Do you think that they can do it, or do you think they'll fall to the Rams or fall to the 49ers coming down the stretch here?
No, listen, the 49ers, knowing that they were eliminated, somehow losing to my horrible Cowboys yesterday, I just want to say, first of all, like, it's great to see my Cowboys win, but my Cowboys need to stop winning, okay?
You don't want to make the playoffs?
They're screwing up their top 5 draft pick is what they're doing. Okay, I know this segment is not about the Cowboys, but I just need to say, like, I'm glad they're winning. They won 2 in a row. They haven't won back-to-back games at all this year, so it's great. But you guys are messing up a top 10 pick here. Like, we need a top 5 pick. So somehow, some way, the 49ers lose that game, and they are now eliminated. They don't have much to play for. You're exactly right. Jimmy G is more than likely not going to come back. George Kittle more than likely not going to come back. Why would you bring your, all-star, superstar guys back in meaningless games? It just doesn't make sense. So the Cardinals will catch a break there. I do feel that the Cardinals are overall just a better team in general. And so I see the Cardinals winning that game. And then you're right. It just depends on what happens in week 17 with the Rams. If the Rams don't have much to play for, they potentially sit some of their guys. If the Rams sit Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey just on the defensive side of the football, I mean, come on. Like, Kyler Murray's got to be just a huge smile on his face, right? He doesn't have to deal with Aaron Donald coming in his face, and then he gets DeAndre Hopkins, like, with the Rams' 2nd or 3rd best cornerback, and they don't have to go up against Jalen Ramsey. So I don't want to speculate too far ahead. I want to try to stay here in week 16, but I like where the Cardinals are at, right? The Cardinals have played well. They did play good against the Eagles yesterday. The Eagles have been a little tougher of an opponent since Jalen Ramsey has been inserted into the starting lineup. So I'm going to say that was a good win for the Cardinals. It's not like they were playing a horrible Jets team or anything like that. Yeah. So, Cardinals, in a sense, control their own destiny. And I think I think they will have an opportunity to get in. So I like the Cardinals' chances, basically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, and think regardless of what the standings will tell and all that stuff, is the Cardinals are getting better. Kyler's getting healthier. Hopkins is getting more involved in the offense. We both believe he might have been hurt in the last few weeks, at least before they started this 2-game winning streak. And the defense, not only is that getting healthier, the defense is playing really, really well. A lot of guys, unsung guys like Marcus Golden, Dennis Gardeck, and Hassan Reddick are getting penetration and changing it up for the Cardinals defense that was really getting torched by everybody. They didn't play as well against the Rams, but again, they're getting healthier. The Cardinals are becoming a better team as the season goes on. So and again, I wanted to explain this to you, Jared, just to be see-through. If the Rams do not defeat the Seahawks, they also have the head-to-head with Tampa Bay. So realistically, they're going to be trying that last week unless the Buccaneers lose one of these games to the Lions or Falcons, which you never know. But it's going to be tough for the Cardinals. The Bears, and if you're a Cardinals fan, you hope the Packers try, because I think the Bears have no chance against the Packers if they play in Week 17, and the Packers are fighting for that number 1 spot. So we need to move on, though. We'll move to the NFC South, where we're talking about the Saints and Buccaneers. Really quickly, Saints play the Vikings on Christmas. The Saints are 10-4. The Buccaneers are 9-5. Again, the Saints have the 2 wins versus the Buccaneers. So if the Saints just win this game, they win the NFC South. They also keep a claim potentially to get that number 1 seed in the NFC, which is huge. And the Buccaneers, again, they're fighting for seeding, like I explained. They're fighting for seeding with the Rams. They're fighting for seeding with the Cardinals, actually, potentially if they lose some games. And they're fighting still to potentially win that NFC South. Jared, does anything concern you about the Saints after this Chiefs loss with Drew Brees coming back? Is there a chance the Saints potentially lose this division, losing to the Vikings and then losing in Week 17?
No,
you don't think there's a chance?
I don't know. I mean, listen, the Saints didn't get blown out. Obviously, this was Drew Brees' first game back in a month from 11 broken ribs. Like, can we just talk about that for a minute? Drew Brees came back in 1 month from 11 broken ribs. There is no way that he was 100%. You can say all you want about the doctors clearing him and his own medical staff clearing him and all of that stuff, and he felt great. There's no way he was 100%. Now, we saw him take some big shots yesterday, and I'm sure he was wearing some extra protective padding around those ribs, right? So maybe it helped and it didn't hurt as much, but he had to have been a little bit rusty. So going up against a juggernaut like the Chiefs, I think it was a good thing because Drees had to test out that arm, and they made it a game, right? Now, maybe it wasn't as close as the final score was, but I think that Saints defense is still legitimate. And to me, the Buccaneers, they do not pose a threat, in my opinion, to the Saints. Give Brees, in a week or in 2-3 more weeks, those ribs will hopefully be even more healed. I'm not sure what's going on with Michael Thomas. I know that he did not play in this game either, and the Saints still only lost by less than a touchdown. So you put Michael Thomas in this game.
That's true. Good point.
And it could have been different as well. So I think this is no doubt the Saints division to lose. Really quickly on the Buccaneers, I mean, did we see how poorly they were playing against Atlanta? Like, it took a fourth quarter comeback touchdown by Antonio Brown for this Buccaneers team to not lose to the awful Atlanta Falcons. So this Buccaneers team to me is too inconsistent. They're up and down. They may look good one game and then they come out and they just look completely flat for an entire half. So I don't have trust in this Buccaneers team. The Saints to me are legitimate, and it's because they have a great defense, and even without Drew Brees at 100%, their offense can still click.
Yeah, I believe for the Saints, looking at just standings wise, they have the tiebreaker over Seattle, and they also they do not have the tiebreaker over the Packers. So again, I believe if the Packers just win this next game, or one of the last 2 games, they win the division, or they win the number 1 seed. So the Saints could potentially be in this scenario where they actually don't have to try Week 17 if they can just get this win.
And if they do that, then you probably rest Drew Brees and you give him an extra week.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Michael Thomas is on IR for the rest of the season, the rest of the regular season, not the playoffs. Okay. So they're saving him because I think they realize worst thing that's going to happen to them is 3rd seed, most likely. So who cares, right? You're going to end up playing the Buccaneers or the Rams either way, probably. So we'll see about that. Yeah, I agree with you what you said about the Saints. I just want to clarify that stuff. I think the Saints win this division, and they're only going to be getting better and better with Brees getting healthier, and then Michael Thomas getting the needed rest he needs. They're still, I think they're a Super Bowl contender. Well, anytime you got Drew Brees, I think you're a Super Bowl contender. Defense is good enough. Offense needs to get Kamara working again, because he hasn't been playing well the last few weeks, but this is a good team. And the Buccaneers, not a Super Bowl contender, and a likely first-round loss opponent, too, coming from them. All right, Real quick, before we get to the NFC East and just all the scenarios, we're not going to really talk about that. The NFC North Packers, they've already won the division. Again, I said if they win any of the last 2 games, they win the number 1 seed. And then when you look at with the Bears, if the Bears win out, they have a really good chance to make the playoffs. If they lose, they're eliminated, essentially. And the Vikings, they need to win all their games and help. So just going over the NFC North for you there real quickly. NFC East, our favorite division, Jared. Now, you talked crap on your Cowboys for winning. But I don't know why you do that, Jared, because they won to try to keep a playoff spot chance ahead of them. So I'll explain what Dallas has to do, and the 4 other teams have to do to make the playoffs here. Dallas needs 2 wins and 2 Washington football team losses. So you're right, Jared. They need to lose because they ain't making the playoffs more than likely. Washington plays the Panthers and the Eagles. They're probably going to win one of those 2 games. So pencil in the Cowboys not make the playoffs most likely, but that's what they have to do. Looking at the Eagles with 2 wins and, again, 2 Washington football team losses, they make the playoffs. The interesting thing with them is they play Washington the last game of the season. So it's because of that tie that all they have to do is have 2 wins. If Washington, for some reason, loses to the Panthers, it's the Eagles and the Washington potentially for that last game. You look at the Giants, this is the most difficult for them. They win the East with 1 win, a Washington football team loss because they beat them twice, and a win versus Dallas and a Philadelphia loss. So they need a lot. Realistically, they need 2 wins because of all the stuff. But the Giants actually have a better chance than the Cowboys, which is kind of interesting. And then for Washington, they control their own destiny. They need to win 2 games. They play the Panthers, like I said, and they play the Eagles. But most probably they'll be in the playoffs week 17. And they might be able to rest guys with 7 wins. So it's just crazy. Any thoughts on this, Jared, or do you just want to move on to the AFC?
It's not good. It's not what you want when you start a season to say, hey guys, we're gonna make the playoffs and we're not even gonna have a 500 or above 500 winning record. Listen, no, the reason why I was kind of upset at the Cowboys winning is because listen, it's great. Like I said, you've got a lot of young guys playing, getting experience for potentially next year if they're going to be on the team. Here's the thing: whoever comes out of this division as the division winner and goes on to the playoffs, do you have any real faith in any of these 4 teams that they can upset their playoff opponent?
Well, okay, I'll say this. After watching Washington and Seattle, let's say Seattle is the 5th seed, you never know. I think with Seattle's defense, there's a chance that Washington could lose or could beat Seattle, and they played them tough. Again, remember, they had Dwayne Haskins, and they played him close. And with Alex Smith, that's actually not that bad of a matchup, right? Against the Rams, a loss. Against the Buccaneers, again, maybe, but probably a loss. So they have a chance. Washington has a chance. I don't think any of the other teams have a chance. But I'll be honest, I think they could possibly beat Seattle, and they might be able to beat the Buccaneers. Do they get a second win? Hell no. No way. No way do they do this. So, again, might as well just eliminate them from the playoffs. But that's not the way the NFL works because it's geographically, it doesn't make sense. But, yeah, again, Dallas is not going to make the playoffs. So, this was a bad win. If you're not going to
make the playoffs, then lose and try to get the best draft pick you can.
I don't think they're drafting a quarterback because they have Dak Prescott.
No, I'm not saying the quarterback. The best defender. I don't care who it is. Defensive lineman.
It doesn't make sense.
The best defender put on the Dallas Cowboys right now.
Yeah, with all these teams. With all these teams that need quarterbacks too, the lower draft pick you get, you're going to get the best defender. You're going to get the best guy. So, yeah, Cowboys screwed up. All right, so now we are going to move to the AFC. We are not going to discuss the AFC West and the AFC East because we already know that the Chiefs are the AFC West champs, probably most likely the AFC champs. We both don't believe, Jared and I believe that the Steelers are going to win out, and the Chiefs probably won't lose. So Chiefs will probably be number 1 seed in the AFC. They should be the best team in the NFL. And then the Bills, the one thing that they'd be playing for is the number 2 seed. I believe they're 1 game behind Pittsburgh, But Pittsburgh has a hell of a schedule to end their season. We will get to that in a second. And the Bills have the tiebreaker over the Steelers. So the Bills still playing for something the rest of the season. But again, the rest of the AFC East, besides the Patriots talk about Bill Belichick and all that stuff, we get into, but we will not be talking about the Bills or Chiefs or any of those other teams in those divisions. So we will jump to the AFC South. This is a 2-team race, Titans and Colts. They have the same exact record, that is 10-4. Titans currently have the tiebreaker over the Colts. They have the tiebreaker best win percentage in division games. I don't think that's going to change. So I believe the Titans, if they just win out, will be the division winners. And the Colts, if they win out, they might not be in it. But here's the difference. I'll just explain what their schedules are. So the Colts, they play the Steelers. So a big matchup for them, obviously. And in week 17, the Colts play the Jaguars. So if they get through this game against the Steelers, which is a tough task, they have a really good chance at finishing 12-4, or they probably will finish 12-4. The Titans, on the other hand, they have to go through the Packers, and the Packers are trying this week. So both these teams have giant games, and then the Titans get the Texans. Not an easy game like the Jaguars would be, but an easier game. So, Jared, after hearing that, these team schedules are very similar. Who the hell ends up winning this division? Do the Titans win their last 2 games and get in, or is it the Colts? Who ends up winning?
Oh, it's Titans all day. Titans all day. I mean, listen, you've got Derrick Henry. You have a great defense. No, let me take that back. You have a good defense, and you've got Derrick Henry, arguably one of the best running backs in the league. Okay, those 2 things carry you into the playoffs, and it's the reason why last year the Titans were the Cinderella story of the entire NFL and beat the Patriots and beat the Ravens, and out of nowhere got themselves into the conference championship game. So going up against the Packers this Sunday night, that's going to be the nationally televised game on NBC. The Packers have a bad run defense. Now, we know what Aaron Rodgers and that offense can do as far as making up points. But if you're Tennessee, I'm running the ball 40 to 50 times in this game. Now, it may not all be with Derrick Henry, right? You're going to have to give him a rest at some point. But I'm basically going to line up and say, Packers, try to stop me. Because so far, through 15 weeks, they have not been able to do that. That has been their Achilles heel. They're good in the secondary. They have good linebackers. But their front defensive line, the big boys, they do not get stops. And what do the Tennessee Titans do best? That is run the dang football. So for me, I'm looking at this and saying the Titans not only control their own destiny, but I don't see this being as big of a matchup maybe as you do. Now, I'm not trying to take anything away from the Packers, but I just don't think this is a good matchup for Green Bay. Now, you can say that it's at home in Lambeau, but there's no fans, nothing like that. So I don't really see a Green Bay home field advantage in that sense. I actually really like the way that the Titans match up with the Packers, and I could see Tennessee coming in and getting a big time win.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a matchup nightmare for the Packers too, and for the Titans, not a bad matchup at all. But when you look at the Colts and Steelers, do you think that the Colts can get past the Steelers defense? We all obviously know about the Steelers offense. They have no rush game. Apparently, James Conner is out for the Monday Night Football game today, so you don't know if he's healthy. We went over the Steelers falling apart last week, so you can go to that podcast and look, because we're not going to talk about the Steelers game coming up because they're playing the Bengals, and the Bengals suck. But I think the way more intriguing game is the Steelers-Colts, so I have to agree with you on that because the Colts are rising. They're playing really well. They're not frauds. Like I potentially tried to put them earlier this season. And you have Phillip Rivers going up against the Steelers defense. Can he do it? Can they have that rushing attack? I'll say this. The Titans have played well this season, but like you said, their defense has not been good. I think that Packers-Titans game ends up being who has the ball last. Because if it's Aaron Rodgers, Titans are losing. And if it's the Titans, they've been playing well. They have A.J. Brown. They have Corey Davis. They have John O. Smith. Seems like he scored a touchdown every single game this season when he's been healthy. And then obviously you have Derrick Henry against a bad rush defense. It's going to be a very, very interesting matchup. When you look at the Colts and Steelers, I think the Colts don't win that game. I think the Steelers will come out and play hard. That defense will be able to stop the Phillip Rivers and that offense and all that stuff. I think Phillip Rivers, they've been playing some sorry defenses lately, and once they play this good one, they'll lose. So I got the Titans win this division. Two, I don't think it necessarily means the Titans being the division winner means they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender, but they can definitely win a game or two in the playoffs. But we'll move to the last division in the AFC already, and that is the AFC North. We were just talking about the Steelers. We also have the Browns and the Ravens. Just discussing what's going on in this division. The Browns, who are the second place team, actually still have a chance to win this division. They are 10-4. The Steelers are 11-2. The Browns, I believe, let's see, they play the Steelers last game of the season, and they play the Jets this week. So if the Steelers lose this game to the Colts, there's a good chance the Browns have a chance to win this division. So let's not count the Browns out of even winning the division. And then you look at the Ravens. The Ravens, Jared, are in 8th place. They're not in the playoffs, and they need help from Miami losing. They need help from maybe the Colts losing. The Ravens cannot just get in. They don't control their own destiny, which is a crazy thing. So what do you think happens in this division? Who wins the division, and how many playoff teams are in, Jared? I'm putting you on the spot. Out of the AFC North, who wins the division, and who are the playoff teams that make it?
I mean, really, who would have thought, right? Pittsburgh, 2 weeks ago, they were undefeated. We were saying, man, they might have a chance to be the second team since the 1972 Dolphins to finish a regular season undefeated. And in the last 2 weeks, they have looked like a shell of themselves. You're completely right. Their running game is non-existent. Big Ben does not seem to be 100%. He can't even take a snap under center. He is literally having to take every snap in the shotgun. And instead of running the ball and giving the ball to James Conner, who, like you mentioned, won't be playing tonight, they're having to use like a quick screen game as their actual running game. So if you're a defense and you know that you don't have to basically stop the run, it is just all pass, you've got your guys coming off and firing off, and Ben Roethlisberger is just taking hits. So to me, the Steelers are going to have to get some type of run identity. I don't know if Big Ben is just going to have to, either suck it up and play with whatever injury he has, or he might have to come out for a couple series, man. I don't know, because the way that Pittsburgh is playing right now, they will make the playoffs because they've already locked up a playoff berth. Yeah. But I could see them getting bounced out in the first round. Cleveland, who I mentioned, I just want to go back because when we did our NFL preview show months and months back, who was it that said Cleveland was going to make playoffs?
You said it, Jared. You said the Browns were going to make the playoffs.
Okay, good. I wanted to make sure that you remember that it was me who said yes.
I didn't think Odell would get hurt. I didn't think Odell would get hurt. I didn't think Odell getting hurt.
No. Here's the thing. Odell got hurt, but that might have actually made Cleveland even better. I don't think Odell was really a fit with this Cleveland Browns team. Now, he might not be the diva that a Terrell Owens or an Antonio Brown is.
He's close, though. He's close.
But he still wants the football. And when he's not getting fed, when he's not getting 4, 5, 6, even double-digit touches in a game, he may not say it out to the media or where people can see, but in that locker room behind closed doors, I can guarantee you he was in Baker Mayfield's face. And that was probably a reason why Baker Mayfield wasn't playing as well when Odell was in the game, because he was forcing passes to Odell. Now, yes, you have Jarvis Landry, who is a very good receiver in his own right, but Baker Mayfield is basically scanning the field and saying, okay, I'm throwing to whoever is open. I don't have to throw it to our star receiver because we're paying him $15, $16 million a year. And it would be a waste if we weren't giving him the ball. So to me, it's like, unfortunately, a blessing in disguise for Baker Mayfield, in my opinion, that Odell did get injured, because I think it took some pressure off of Baker Mayfield. And we have seen him start to play a lot better in these recent weeks. Also, when you have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in your backfield, it is no doubt the best 1-2 punch of a running back tandem that we have seen in this entire NFL. We get it, Derrick Henry's in Tennessee, and we just talked about him. But what Cleveland has with both of those guys who can run between the tackles, outside the tackles, and catch passes, I mean, you bring either one of them either one of them in, and you don't know what you're going to do. Like certain backs, like when I believe Derrick Henry at one point had he had like a change of pace back. So whenever Derrick Henry came out of the game and the other running back came in for him, you knew it was going to be some type of pass, right? When Nick Chubb comes in for Kareem Hunt, you're not sure what it is. You
have no idea. Yeah.
You literally have no idea. So I think the Cleveland Browns offensively are starting to flow. Their defense, to me, is a little bit suspect. Myles Garrett is going to have to really show up in these playoffs. And the guy's getting paid. I believe he's the highest paid defensive end in all of the NFL. He's going to have to prove why, because they're missing some guys in the secondary. They're a little banged up. So Cleveland, from an offensive standpoint, yes, I trust them and I like them. Defensively, I'm a little skeptical. So as a whole, because Pittsburgh is not playing as well, I will say that, I have more faith in Cleveland dethroning Pittsburgh for that division title. But as far as being a legit Super Bowl contender, I'm not exactly there yet with Cleveland.
So you believe the Colts are going to beat the Steelers? Because the only way the Steelers would potentially lose the division is if they lost to the Colts. So if you think the Colts are going to lose, then the Steelers won't win the division. But I think you're saying that you think the Browns are a better team. But as far as the division, do you think the Colts will beat the Steelers?
Here's why that's tough. Who's the quarterback for the Colts?
It's Philip Rivers.
It's Philip Rivers. In the last couple of weeks, you and I have both used the word fraud on this show.
Yeah.
Frequently, multiple times. If you look in the dictionary at the word fraud, you'll have a picture of Philip Rivers' face right next to it. He is the ultimate fraud. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. In the regular season, he will put up all the stats in the world, 4,000 passing yards, 30-plus touchdowns, all the stats. He's going to make his receivers look well. He's going to talk trash while he's doing it. And what does he do in big moment games and when he gets into the playoffs? He chokes every single year. The guy's been in the league for like 15 seasons. Philip Rivers is what he is at this point. We don't have to second guess it anymore. So yes, during the regular season, they have a nice record. They have an opportunity to make the playoffs. They are exactly where I thought this Colts team would be. But in a big matchup where the Colts have to win, playing against a Pittsburgh Steelers defense that is number one in the turnover category, are you going to ask me if I trust Philip Rivers to go in and get a game when they need it? Hell no. So, I mean, it's a flip of a coin because obviously Pittsburgh isn't playing well, but I will take this Pittsburgh team over a Philip Rivers team when you need Philip Rivers to play his best.
There you go.
It's not going to happen.
Jared Smith says the Steelers will win the AFC North. Now, I believe that too because I already said the Colts would lose, so I think Pittsburgh has the AFC North. Browns, I have to agree with you. The running game is awesome, but defense, playoffs comes down to having a good defense and a great quarterback. And I think that Baker Mayfield, he takes too long with the ball. I think in the playoffs when you're facing tough defense in a row, Baker's not going to be able to do a lot. So do I think they're a Super Bowl contender? No. Do I think they can win a game or two in the playoffs? Maybe get to the AFC Championship game? Possibly. Do I think they can beat the Steelers? Yes. But do I think they're a true contender? I don't think there's any way they win 4 games in the playoffs this year. So I will go with it. They are not a Super Bowl contender, but they are a good playoff team. They are better than this. They have a better chance than the Steelers. And then the Ravens. Here's the thing about the Ravens. They will win their last 2 games because they play the Giants and they play the Bengals. So they will end the season 11-5. But if the Miami Dolphins finish at 11-5 as well, the Dolphins make the playoffs, and the Dolphins play the Raiders, who need to win to keep playoff chances alive. They play the Bills, and the Bills, like I mentioned earlier, will play their last 2 games hard because they want to try to get that second seed. So you're looking at here, the Ravens, even though they're going to end up 11-5 potentially with 7 seeds, they still might not make the playoffs. Now, the interesting thing would be is if the Browns ended up with a 10-5 record. Because if the Browns end up 10-5, which the only way that could happen is if they lost to Steelers, the Ravens have the tiebreaker over them. So what's funny is the Browns might not actually make the playoffs. So there's a bunch of jumbled stuff that we'll get into going into week 17 if that's what is to talk about. But I just want to explain to you guys, the Ravens might not make the playoffs with an 11-5 record in 7 playoff games. So you got to look, if you're an AFC North fan or you're a fan of the Ravens, cheer against the Dolphins. And the Dolphins have a lot tougher games than the Ravens. So it's going to be interesting for sure. Hey, next week, we have a huge show to get to you. Before next week as well, we will be releasing our NBA preview show. That will come out before that. But when we get back to football, we're going to be talking about Week 17. We're going to go over the scenarios that we talked about just now and tell you what's going on with them. We're going to update you a little bit, see who's clinched, all that stuff, and then we will get into previewing the final, the semifinal of the college football playoffs. Jerry, we actually are running out of time, so we can't get to the college football playoff this week. So we will talk about Texas A&M and Notre Dame next week. But NFL took over today, and we need to get off this podcast because we have some other recordings to do. So we will get to college football next week along with the NFL. So for this podcast, we are done. Merry Christmas to everybody. Once again, I am Nick Nenad.
And I'm Jared Smith. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, guys. We will see you multiple times next week.